mentioned earlier about saving money and buying used and all that. I got dressed up for y'all. My best suit. My $19.99 suit that I got at the thrift store. Joseph A. Banks. The shirt came from the thrift store, $3.99. Tie, $1.99. Shoes, brand new.
Yeah.
Underwear, new. For those of you who may be curious, boxers. But I have basically, I think $89 and change in this outfit that I have. As far as from the thrift store, and that includes the $55 operation bill. You wouldn't have known it, would you? That's what I'm talking about. Thomas Jefferson said that if a nation expects to be ignorant and free, it expects what never was and never will be. I want to serve. I have no capitalistic agenda. I have no desire to go back into the capitalistic arena. I want to use my God-given talents, and I want to change the culture. That's where this thing is going to change. The culture has to be changed. The employees have to be reprogrammed. They have got to take this and make it their own and be public servants again. They've got to take the initiative. Something's got to be done to see if it can be found on eBay. I am available to speak to any group, anywhere. Now, I don't know if at some point in time there may be a run for some office. I don't know. It's possible. I like my privacy, which goes kind of contrary to the running for political office. But I don't know. I'm leaving the options open. I can assure you that the way I live my life is the way that I would execute my duties. I can further assure you that the way I would run any campaign would be a further example of how I would manage. So those are the things that I can tell you. With all that being said, that's basically it. Now this is the fun part that I like. Questions?
What do you propose to do in your arena of your expertise? What can we do to bring about changes in St. Clair County?
Well,
Some of our husbands are employed, in Jefferson.
Well, the problem is that in government, and it's all the way from the federal all the way down to the municipal level, it's culture. 40 years ago, people would take the initiative. Teachers would take the initiative. They would go and buy things on their own. They would run an errand. Now, you don't see that. There's no sense of duty and honor anymore in public service. It's all based on what does the personnel board say I can do, or what does the rule book say I can do, or what does my supervisor say I can do. I will say this, however, in my opinion, the biggest part of the problem, at least in the county and the state, is middle management. Too many chiefs, not enough Indians. The other thing is that we are not, and I alluded to this early on, the employees are the biggest asset, and we're not engaging the employees. They're pawns. We want to cut them first. And these are the people that know where the inefficiencies exist. These are the people that know where rubber and road's not meeting, and yet they're being arguably suppressed because they're afraid to talk because of the retribution that would come from their superiors or supervisors and department heads and so forth. Studying Purdue, and I spent a little bit of time together. He used to be former governor of Georgia. When he came in, he told his department heads he wanted their resignations and that he would interview them at a future point. And I'm a big believer that that's what we need to do. And I had something in here that I purposely didn't say, and I may regret saying it, but I'm going to say it anyway. And what I'm about to say is something I've said for years, so it's not a recent revelation. What the state needs is a good old-fashioned rectal exam and an enema. And that's a true heartfelt statement. I walked into companies and said that. Jokingly, I can also say that the state doesn't need a dermatologist, it needs a urologist. The problem is culture. And the problem is we have a system that doesn't encourage input from the subordinates. And when I say subordinates, I'm talking the lowest level of people. These are people that know what's going on, and they know what can be done to fix it. And there's no encouragement. There's no encouragement for them to take the risk to even disclose or to even talk. And I have to further go back. I mentioned earlier about that I considered the possibility of running for county commission. And I addressed the Jefferson County Employees Association Tuesday. And I told them, and I meant it, had I run, I would have been walking up and down the aisles in the courthouse and asking them, what can be done? If I were elected, I would be doing the same thing. And yet the 5 commissioners are not doing that. They're only giving lip service to talking to them. I said, look, they're telling them what's going on. I said, well, have they asked you what the problems are? What can be done? Have they asked you for your input or other solutions? No. They're more interested in getting a bill passed that will give them the ability to declassify department heads, which there was a public hearing at 8 a.m. this morning on in Montgomery.
Basically what you're saying is they're more interested in making themselves look good.
I don't know if I'm not real sure if they're interested in making themselves look good. If they are, they're failing. Quite frankly, when people come into office, elected office, they typically want what their predecessors wanted, which is a second term. And what we need are people who are not interested in a second term. They're interested in a one term, not from the standpoint of primarily from the standpoint that they just want to get the job done with disregard for their polling numbers or how people feel. I can assure you, in my companies, I was not liked per se. I was respected. I was no more hard on any one person than I was on myself. And while I may have been barking orders, so to speak, and cracking the whip, so to speak, I was right there in the trenches with them. I was never doing it from the beach or never doing it from the lake or anything like that. I was always doing it when I was there. So I really despise hypocrisy. And that's why I don't consider myself to be hypocritical in the things that I teach, the way that I live, and the way that I run and manage things. The way I live my life, the way obviously, as you now know, the way that I dress is exactly how I would run and manage the people's business. And that's what's missing here. Plain and simple. It's a lot of dollars and cents, and those dollars and cents that we're losing and that are bleeding here and bleeding there, they're adding up. And then you're combining them with all these other agencies, and it adds up into a big number. My name was being advanced, and still is being advanced in Montgomery for an appointment to the governor's new Commission on Improving State Government, which he created with Executive Order 4 or 5. I got a copy of it, but it didn't tell me what the number is. Which the sole purpose of that was to look at the inefficiencies and look at ways the state can save money. Problem is, the people that were appointed to that commission are part of the problem. The people that are part of their own little cultures. Nothing disparaging to Alabama Power. Charles McCrary was appointed to it. He had the governor's transition team. I am going to make a comment about transition before I step down. But I just don't understand the appointing of people who understand cultures. What we need is someone who is not a cultural person. And that's the problem. For the most part, people that are on that commission are embracing and enabling the continuation of the culture environment. And so, as a result, I made a point that I'm not being particularly popular, but I was respected. And that's what we need. We need somebody that's not interested in being popular. We've got tough decisions that need to be made, and we need to correct things internally. And yes, it is going to be unpopular with some people because you're going to be taking away their kingdom. I have to stress, I have never looked at cutting the human element first. It's always at the very bottom of the list. And even before I look at cutting a human element, I always look at, can we get compromise so that we don't have to cut anybody? Now, that really goes to the heart of how I feel and the way that I've done things. So I have a track record of doing it that way, and it works. But it only works when everybody is in the same boat together. And when I say everybody, I mean everybody from the top all the way down. And everybody is getting wet. Everybody is what I call shared sacrifice. Everybody's feeling the pain. Everybody's tightening their belt. And that's what we've got to do, and that's what we're not doing. I mentioned the transition team, and I didn't have this in my notes, but I have to say something about it. And it's transition regardless, whether it's the governor or the president. I've never understood the concept of having a hand-picked group of people who are not even going to be in management, so to speak, picking the management structure. I've never gotten that concept. When I would go in to look at a company, I would assemble usually a group of 3 people to evaluate the company. The group that was doing, and it's what we would call due diligence. The group that was doing the due diligence was going to be the management of that company if we did the transaction. So you're getting first-hand experience. So I've never understood the concept of having these people pick the players. It's always been so disconnected that I've never understood it. But that's me. As you can see, I don't fit the mold. So, any other questions? Yeah.
Yes. Good morning. Sorry I came in late.
That's all right.
Gary Sponsor, State Steering Committee, State Party. I loved your analogy about the rat and the mouse trap and the cheese. You're definitely a good trap, I can tell you that.
Well,
but to make the point, I think I'm a big piece of Velveeta cheese. I think that's me, my personality. Gathering, encouraging, bringing to the trap to either A, be corrected or or caught. And in my opinion, I think Reagan was a piece of cheese as well.